Welcome to the Unusual History of Everything, the podcast that uncovers the unusual history of everything around us. I'm Karen Lacey.
And I'm Melanie Dellis. On this episode, we're going to uncover the secrets contained within demon bowls and try to figure out why anyone in their right mind would turn one over. But before we get into that, welcome to Season 8!
Yay!
Which is going to be fun, and as always, probably a little weird, a little gross, depending on who you ask and you know, who's doing the research.
And it's really good to be back. We've taken a little hiatus.
Season 8.
This is crazy. Oh my gosh.
It's nuts. It's so much fun.
All right, so in this episode, it might get a little bit terrifying because we're going to be talking about the unusual history of demon bowls. It's an ancient one, but we're only going to start in about 1888 with the professor of Hebrew, John P. Peters, from the University of Pennsylvania. He led an archaeological excavation on a Jewish settlement in Nippur, which is in modern-day Iraq. And it was there in a row of houses that the team discovered hundreds of terracotta bowls buried upside down under the floors, directly under the doorways and in the four corners of the foundations. And some of the bowls were found sealed rim to rim.
Now, these weren't ordinary bowls, and they go by many names: incantation bowls, devil's traps, demon bowls, and exorcism bowls. But they all serve the same purpose: to capture demons and protect the owners of the houses. The bowls the team found are more than 1,400 years old and inscribed on the inside in a spiral in 3 Aramaic dialects: Jewish Babylonian Aramaic, Mandaic, and Syriac. Some of the inscriptions, however, are symbols that don't relate to any known language. And if that weren't unusual enough, in the center of almost all of them was a drawing of a demon bound in chains or a figure fighting evil creatures.
The bowls are a form of early protective magic practiced in Upper Mesopotamia, Babylon, and Syria during the 6th and 8th centuries. The owners, believing that they were being afflicted by a demon in some way, would inscribe the inside of the bowl with charms or magical texts, beginning at the rim and working in a spiral toward the center, where they would then draw a picture of the demon they were being bothered by. This was meant to lure in the demon and trap it in the bowl where the owner had buried it upside down. Once in, the demon could not get out until the bowl was turned over.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. I get that the archaeologists came across the first house and found the bowls and were like, hey, look at these cool bowls. So they used their tools to dig them out and flip them over to examine them. But after the second or third house with bowls buried upside down in the same areas, don't you think they would have stopped and said, wait, this is kind of strange? Then maybe do some, investigating on why these bowls would be buried that way and with symbols painted on that were like in a spiral that led to a demon? I mean, come on. I mean, seriously, I know that they probably didn't know that research, they didn't probably know what it was they were looking at. But I think, Karen, I don't know, if you saw, you're an archaeologist, if you saw a bowl or a bunch of bowls in a house in the same location, all flipped upside down, and you flipped over the first one and saw there was like a pretty obvious like incantation like thing with a big scary demon in the middle, don't you think you would have been like, wait a minute, guys, don't flip anything else over. We need to research. I mean, I've seen enough mummy movies to know that something fishy is probably going on. And you should probably just take a second and not get all crazy. It's not like they were made of gold and everybody was like, oh my God, it's gold bowls. You know what I mean?
I do. And I would have to say, gosh, it depends. I've actually been on archaeological excavations where we had things flipped upside down and we flipped them over.
Did you see any demons and incantations in them?
I did not.
There was nothing to tell you that there might be
nothing to tell me that it was dangerous or that it wasn't okay. And I like things that we found, like we found a griddle stone, which is basically a big flat rock that would have been used for cooking. And it would make sense that you would flip your basically this rock upside down so that the critters don't get to it and whatever, and you can come back to it later. I mean, critters can still get up underneath, but
but they're not demonic critters.
But they're not demonic critters.
That's my point.
And it's like more of a protection for your stone and whatnot, or sometimes the person who was using it would die and you would like break it so that no one else could use it. You'd see that a lot, like little things that were broken. It just meant the original user was had since passed. But yeah, I have to say, if I saw one bowl, whatevs, two bowls, whatevs,
and
20
listen,
bowls, I'd
can't-
start to think about it, especially with the pictures on the bowls themselves saying something. I mean, as an archaeologist, you are meant to stop and look. And if there is any kind of telltale thing like that, you would stop and look. But I would also say that these are people looking and excavating in a worldview of science as opposed to a worldview of a religion or faith-based belief system. And so sometimes when you're thinking in one worldview versus another, you maybe don't make the connection.
Okay. But
I'm trying to defend their actions.
What if...
But yes, I would have probably not continued to turn those bowls over and been like, what do bowls upside down mean?
In my mind, too, I mean, I know that they had to have turned it over and heard the... You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a demon going away, like flying out. They're like,
Right.
finally, I'm freaking released. It's been 1,400 years. And they heard that whoosh. Whoosh.
Well, the other thing I would say, though, too,
A cold wind.
the other thing I would say, too, is that when you're an archaeologist, you need to do your due diligence before you excavate, which means they should have already known what upside down bowls meant, in theory. But
this is the first time they found it.
Yeah, okay, maybe. This is the first time they found it, and it's like this obscure thing about it. Then okay, maybe I would kind of get back to them and say they didn't know. They maybe thought that they were just looking at some bowls that had been put upside down.
Yeah, well...
And you did say that many of the rims were like, or I said, that many of the rims were like glued together, essentially.
Yeah, they were sealed. We're going to talk about that too in a little bit. But like the ones that they first found were not sealed rim to rim. And the archaeology team did not stop turning them over. In fact, as of 2022, people have found over 2,200 bowls. And that tells me that over 2,200 demons have now been released since 1888. I'm not even kidding you.
Oh my God.
That
also says to me
so much.
That also says to me, like I'm going back to my like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, this is a hellmouth.
It's a freaking hellmouth, right?
But I don't know. Okay. That's crazy.
Why were so many demons only in that specific part of the world?
Yeah.
They're all released now. They're all over the world now. And that would explain, I bet you anything, if we went back from 1888 to this point in time and we calculated all of the really horrific things.
There's been a lot.
I bet you we get to 2,200.
But that's with the idea that one demon per bad thing, which...
Oh my God, it'd be like one demon could cause like a million things.
Well, then you start.
We're screwed.
Yeah.
20. Thanks a lot. Who's this team?
Yeah, but
in
then
1888?
again, they might have one bowl, and like 6 of the bowls, or 20 of the bowls, or 100 of the bowls are all referring to the same demon.
I think that most of them were all different. And that doesn't
have like 2,200 different
all.
demon names.
Yeah, well, some of them had pictures of, I'm pretty sure like all the pictures were different, demon pictures. And some of them didn't have demon pictures. They had just like inscriptions, but it was like a language that has never existed. So that tells me angel script or demonic language, like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what else could it be?
I have
a language
no
that
idea.
Nobody has ever heard of.
Okay.
OMG.
Well, but
I am
there's
just telling
many-
you the facts.
I know, and I hear you. But from my sciencey brain,
Yeah.
what I would say is there are several languages that we actually still haven't, transcribed yet. Indus Valley script, we've seen that written, and we've seen evidence of that in many places or several places because they were like trading and things like that. And we don't know how to read that. We didn't know how to read
The Minoans.
Minoans. We've got, we didn't know how to read Egyptian. Or hieroglyphics until we saw the Rosetta Stone that had script that we did understand. So I would say, there's languages out there that we don't quite know. So I'm going to put that one to the side.
All right.
But I will say that, there's something to some of this interesting, thing kind of taking off my little sciencey brain and saying, I mean, that's a lot of bowls with a lot of information. And we've talked about protective magic. Kind of sometimes it can be very, just something that you do because it's part of your religion, but it can also be something that you do because you feel like you're being afflicted too. Right. And I mean, this is a lot in like, a small area.
Yeah. And the fact
and you're
that
not
it's
really
not
seeing
anywhere
that
else
outside of the area.
It's very suspicious.
Then it's suspicious that there's something going on, at least with
Hellmouth. You were right.
A hellmouth, or it's at least just something going on with their religion that they have this kind of relationship with demons as their everyday kind of occurrence. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
But I would wonder if those same, quote unquote demons in other cultures we've talked about could be more like pixies or gnomes or, whatever it is, some of those
gnomes aren't going to be all terrifying and demon-like.
But we've talked about like kind of breaking those down,
love
right?
Gnomes.
And like I do love gnomes as well. But I'm just saying, like, thinking about like some of the things that we talked about in terms of like you have ancestors that kind of,
right.
stay around and look over everybody, but you have to keep them like
and
happy and
these
satisfied.
Sprites and stuff.
Ancient sprites and stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe we're looking at more of something like that as opposed to just demon, because demon's a scary word for us.
Yeah.
If you think about it in terms of like, oh, it's a sprite, right? It has a different connotation.
And actually, yeah, that's a possibility. I'm going to give it to you because of what we're going to talk about in a minute too.
Yes.
We'll get back to that.
We'll get back. Like, let's put a pin in this conversation.
But keep in mind what we're going to talk about in a minute. Just think about sprites and gnomes and little pixies and stuff like that, and how it could be not a demon like we think of now, but like what the ancient people long ago thought.
Right.
Like it could have been a pixie. Okay, we'll get back. We'll get back to that.
Okay. So let's back to the bulls.
Yes.
Okay. So over 60% of the bulls found to date were inscribed by what people of Babylon called Jewish wizards. The Jews were considered to be experts on the subject of demon bulls. The incantations began with repeating phrases, words, or syllables that were believed to have power to bind demons within. The names of angels can be found on many, specifically Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael, as well as the name Yahweh, asking them to help fight the demons and seal them within the bull, rendering the evil entity unable to exercise its powers over the owners named within the inscription.
That's so cool. I mean, people do that now in certain ways with certain types of things. I mean, it's still practiced.
They do. It is still like various kinds of things like that is still saying, hey, like look over me. I mean, think about like a daily prayer that you might have, like, watch over me while I'm sleeping or,
right.
Or
even the rosary if you're in Catholicism. I mean, there's lots of things like that. In paganism, and that's still practiced today. I mean, they have those binding spells.
And so many religions practice these kind of protection prayers or protection spells type of thing. And so this one is just in bull form.
Which is terrifying to me. I mean, I don't know why, but like...
It's because of the connotation of like the demon, the idea, and the fact that they're upside down and now they're not. Like, I get just putting those things together, like that would be very terrifying. But look at it, take a step back and be like, what if you found a whole bunch of rosary, or a whole bunch of, what I mean? It's different. Or prayer cards or whatever it might be.
On our social media, we're going to put up some pictures of the examples of the demon bulls that have been found. So you can kind of see what they look like and see the demons that are in the center, because they're not really terrifying when you look at it, because it looks like a 5-year-old kind of drew it. But actually, it's probably better than I can draw. But I mean, like what I'm saying is that it's not like the pictures of demons that you see in some of these medieval scripts and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's not like fancy and really well.
So to be fair to those archaeologists, they're probably like, what is this bull and what is that?
You can still tell that it's not right. Like you can tell.
You'll have to look on our website to kind of and Instagram to kind of see that a little bit.
Okay, so here's what I'm talking about with the pixies that I think we can talk about. So Suzanne Davis, who's the curator of conservation at the Kelsey Museum of Archaeology at the University of Michigan, my hometown, woo-hoo. She wrote a blog in 2018 about pieces of an inscribed eggshell that they have in their collection. The shells were found at the archaeological site of Seleucia in Iraq, in a corner of a house. They were inside 2 demon bowls that were set on top of each other, one placed right side up and the other placed upside down on top of the first bowl, but leaving a slight opening for the demon to get in. Here's why I was thinking about it with the pixies. Basically, the demon would be intrigued by the eggshell, go inside to get a closer look, and then get trapped by the binding powers of the spiral incantation it was reading, because of course it's going to see the eggshell and start reading, right?
Yeah.
Once trapped inside, the owner could smash the eggshell to destroy the demon or use pitch to seal it within. A lot of them were sealed still with pitch, and of course, archaeologists were like, what's this? Let's open it up. And of course, that demon went away and whoosh, it flew into the atmosphere. And now we've got all sorts of problems. Pandora's box. Or Was it a pixie? Was it a little... Because I remember Spiderwick Chronicles. I always go back to that. And they were luring the little... What was he? A hobgoblin or like a house elf or something with the honey on the cracker?
Yes.
And he would lure them in and like try to trap him or whatever. Maybe they were luring in a pixie or a house elf or a hobgoblin or whatever, thinking, I mean, I could clearly see how ancient people would think those things are demons.
Yeah.
And
Well, maybe
were
they
trying to
didn't
trap
have.
them.
Well, I mean, because when we think about it, we have all these different names, that in many ways have some of the same origin stories, but kind of have evolved into different things, into different cultures. I mean, we have talked about gnomes, but gnomes in different cultures is not the same thing. Or talking about like, what is a troll? Or, what is a pixie?
Or
what
a
is
Smurf?
What is
That
a
was
Smurf? Or what about a
that
leprechaun?
was a demon. What country was it where the Smurfs were based on demons?
Ugh,
Do you remember that?
no.
We did a podcast on it.
We did.
It was so
been
long
a
ago.
minute.
It was
been a
like
minute.
some
Well, the original
Netherlands.
I think that oh my God, this is.
I'm going to Google it.
You should Google it because I think the Smurfs, the cartoon itself, is actually Danish or something.
I can't remember. I think it was some kind of like Netherlands or something. I can't find it. We're going to waste time.
I think that there's a lot more to this story, and I'm sure you're going to continue doing your little deep dive into this. Are there demons that have been causing chaos since the archaeologists found them? But
I'm going to make a timeline of every bad thing, and I'm going to associate there's a list of demons.
That sounds like something like, wasn't it like Nostradamus, where they like made all these predictions and then like people have like gone past and been like, look, this is how it like fits into this timeline. I don't know. Like in retrospect, a lot of things fit when you want it to.
It does. Yeah, they do when you want it to.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of our episode. You can follow the Unusual History of Everything podcast on Instagram at the Unusual History of Everything and on Facebook at the Unusual History of Everything podcast. And find our show notes on www.musecuratorial.com. The Unusual History of Everything is written, produced, and directed by Melanie Dellis and Karen Lacey.
New episodes air every Tuesday on all podcast outlets. Be sure to subscribe to us so you never miss an episode and leave us a review. You can also see photos from our episodes and more on our website, Instagram, and Facebook. Thanks for listening. I'm Melanie Dellis.
And I'm Karen Lacey, your host for the Unusual History of Everything.
Da, da.